Hello, I'm Josh Cook with Ballast Tools and Equipment, and this is our Tamper Vibrator Bearing Replacement Toolkit. In our toolkit you have a bearing plate puller, a bearing pusher block, the plate pusher, a 1-inch bolt washer and nut to be used with the pushers, a shaft protection plate, some additional length 1/2-inch bolts, and 3/8 bolts. In addition to the toolkit, you will also need some hand tools. You have a 1/2-inch drive ratchet, 1/2-inch drive extension, 9/16 socket, 3/4 inch socket, 1 1/8 socket, 1.5 inch socket, 1/2-inch combination wrench, and 1.5 inch combination wrench. This is our Tamper Vibrator bearing replacement demonstration. The first thing we're going to need to do is to remove the vibrator motor. I'm going to take a 1/2-inch wrench and remove the 4 bolts holding the motor on to the vibrator assembly. Now that we have removed the 4 bolts holding the motor on, we can remove the motor and set it aside. Alright. Now we're going to remove the motor adapter plate. In order to do that, we need to remove these 4 bolts. They're 9/16. Now that we've removed the 4 bolts, we're going to pull off the motor adapter plate using this plate and 2 of the bolts we took out. We'll install them where the motor went. We'll install the puller bolt. Use an 1.5 inch socket. And pull the motor adapter off. Alright, now we're going to remove the vibrator assembly side plate. We'll use a 3/4 inch socket and remove the 4 bolts. Now we are going to remove the side plate. First we install the shaft protector over the shaft and install the puller using the longer provided bolts onto the side plate. Then remove the side plate. We'll now turn the motor over and we'll remove the cover plate. Once the 4 bolts have been removed, remove the cover plate. Then we will take the 4 bolts of the side plate loose. Once you remove 3 bolts from the cover, loosen one and leave it in there to keep the cover plate from rotating when you're pulling. Install the shaft protector over the end of the shaft, inserting the dowels into the hole. Next, install the cover plate puller using the longer bolts provided into the cover. Now turn the center screw to pull the side plate. Once the shaft has been completely pushed through the bearing, the side plate can be removed. Now that we've removed the side plate, we'll go ahead and press out the bearing. Once we've removed the bearing side plate, we can go out to the truck and use our vise to remove the bearing. We'll install the side plate into the vise. Use the bearing removal side of the bearing pusher, pilot it into the bearing. Insert the 1-inch bolt through the tool. On the opposite side, we use the deep cup side of the bearing pusher plate. Install the washer, and then followed by the nut. Now we will tighten the bolt to push the bearing out of the plate. Tighten the bolt until the bearing drops into the cup. Once the bearing's dropped into the cup, we can go ahead and remove the bolt. Remove the side shield, the bearing, followed by the last side shield, and the tools. To install the bearing, first grease the inner lip of the shield and insert it into the housing. Next, pilot the bearing into the hole. Use the install side of the bearing plate pusher. Insert the 1-inch bolt. Next, we'll slide on the bearing pusher, and we'll pilot that into the bearing. Install a washer, the 1-inch nut, and tighten the bolt until the bearing bottoms out. Now that the bearing is fully seated, we will remove the bolt. Next, we will install the last bearing shield. Now we'll go back to the tamper to install the side plate. Now we need to reinstall the side plate cover. Now reinstall the side plate on the vibrator housing. Now we will install the motor adapter onto the other side plate. Now we will press the shafts back into the bearings utilizing the side plate and some longer provided bolts. Pilot the shaft into the two side plates and install the longer bolts. Use the longer bolts to press the shaft into the bearings. Ensure the shaft spins freely in the new bearings. Now we may reinstall the motor. Be sure to install our drive adapter onto the dowels. Now that we've reinstalled the motor, the Tamper vibrator rebuild is complete.